Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody. Welcome to Militiaman and Crew, this fine evening of September 7th. And we're going to talk about a few things, some things that may have been overlooked. A lot of times we do our research and we find that there's articles that make sense, they are that don't make sense, and they are that can go both sides, and then there's some that are just flat out wrong. So it makes it difficult for us. But in the meantime, hey, if we got to go back in time a little bit sometimes to get a little perspective from history, not a long time, just a little bit of time. It's always a good thing. So the last few days have been relatively quiet. I was going to try to do a YouTube yesterday. It just didn't kind of feel right yet. But today we're going to have one, and I think that we can probably put some things together that makes a little more sense, or at least gives some validity to how far they've come and how close we are. That's the whole idea here in this particular investment of ours. So look, Al Rashid and Rafidane banks began distributing the salaries of retirees for the month of September. Well, we heard that, and obviously we all know that hasn't quite happened yet, but this is going to go back to September 3rd, and yes, today's the 7th, so it's been about 4 days. It says that the Al Rashid and Rafidane Bank announced the start of distributing salaries to the retirees for the current month of September. Now remember, look, the retirees, the civil servants, are different than employees. All right, so that's just something that you have to take into consideration, because they, if you're not paying attention to it, you can get confused on that. But the fact remains is, budgetary monies go for specific types of groups and specific types of things, and in this particular case, it's probably likely what we've seen in recent past, when you feel like there's been some payments made, electronic payments, or they're being distributed for payments to be made, you're gonna have to decipher between who are the employees or the retirees and the civil servants, etc. So it says the Rafidane State Bank stated that the salaries of the civil and military retirees have been distributed for the month of September, noting that the retirees can receive their salaries from wherever they are. Now, when they say that, that's what they're talking about, is that they have cards. They have electronic, and we'll get to that. But it says that the Rashid Bank confirmed that today, which was, I believe, the 3rd, that they started raising the salaries of the military retirees for the month of September. It says the Nakheel card holders, retirees, can go to the bank branches, the automated teller machines, and outlets to withdraw their financial dues. So we're going to probably find out this evening that there's been some adjustments, and there's been some proceeds that come from the 2022 budget. I believe that to the tune of about $18.5 billion effectively. And so some of these things, like the retirees and the civil servants, et cetera, getting those salaries on a constitutional basis, is probably built into that money that was brought forward. $18.5 billion is quite a bit of money when it comes right down to it. So anyway, we'll see in the short term how that plays out. I think that what you're going to see is that the salaries for Baghdad, salaries for the Kurdistan region are going to effectively be unified. They need to be unified, and they need to be unified constitutionally. And I think we're going to find that out tonight. And I think that's going to be one of the most exciting things that you guys are going to find, that for our investment wise, is what's to come. This particular article, again, was on the 3rd of this month. It says Sunday, today, which is the 3rd, the Ministry of Commerce issued a clarification regarding the delay in paying the salaries of the employees. It says that the delay in the salaries of the ministry's center employees, so remember that's the difference, is due to regulatory procedures. I think that there's other articles of translation and or could be additional articles that say there were technical issues. This particular article specifically states, due to regulatory procedures in the Ministry of Finance that it requested in conjunction with the scheduled dates of the financing the ministry's accounts. So they are openly stating that they have some regulatory procedures that created somewhat of a problem. Let's just say that that's true. Or then we could say it's not true. But here that we're just assuming that that's their excuse. It says that this man says his department has completed all the necessary requirements and is awaiting the arrival of the required funding for the purpose of direct disbursement. So here, this is the government talking, right? And then if you hear some other things, you're going to hear from the Kurdistan region, the way they put it to each other. But in the end, I think what we're going to find is that not only is the government on the same page, but the Kurdistan region's on the same page. It's just that the news outlets and the media doesn't quite paint the picture in a cut and dry manner. And that's not their job, is to babysit us. And it's not their job to tell you every specific thing that they're going to do, how they're going to do it, what the exchange rate is, what the date is. Anybody that thinks that is going to ever be possible, I'm not sure that you should be in this investment. But the fact remains is we all have curiosity, so fair enough. We're all curious to what that is, and we're just going to have to wait to find out. So anyway, the regulatory procedures, whether they're technical or not, that's basically what we're looking for, is that the employees of the Ministry Center for their understanding and patience. They've been thanked under the circumstances and the delay of the disbursement. So basically the accounting departments are basically apologizing, saying, look, we understand your plight. We understand that you need the money. You have mortgages, you have food to pay, food bills, everything. So they're doing their best that they can under the circumstances. Obviously, they haven't paid their salaries, and we're going to show that that's probably that's the case. Is that in the sense of the employees, they haven't received that, and they're about to. They should, because we're going to find that the Kurdistan region, I think, has obliged, and they have done what they have said they were going to do. But in the meantime, we'll move on to something that's a little bit on a sidebar, is that, there's the economic advisors. There's one of them by the name of Marsomi. I'm not so sure exactly why this guy is talking in this particular case, but the interesting is it has a relationship to Saleh. And one of the things that they talk about is that there is a surplus that's been achieved for the year 2022 and throughout the history of the oil industry that is approaching 100 years old now. They've had a surplus of a total of about $53.4 billion due to the rise in exports in 2022. And so that is amounting to about $53.54 billion of surplus carried forward from the budget 2022 to 2023, right? So they have a surplus. And so here we talked about those salaries being retirees and civil servants. Al-Sudani has mentioned that they have probably moved some money ahead into the budget, which they say that would be able to cover those salaries for that segment of the population. The other segment of the population, the employees, well, they're waiting for their money because it's a little different. It's going to come from the 23-20 budget, and part of that surplus could very well be a bleed over from this, but there's actually the budget in and of itself. 23, 24, 25 budget is an investment budget. It's an operational side as well. It's going to be part of the private sector investment side of things. Basically, it's stated that here it says reflections. This is where Saleh comes in. Reflections regarding the repercussions of these financial returns is on the economy and the citizen, and their impact is resolving the economic crisis facing the country, whose budget depends on more than 95% oil sales. And the financial advisor to the Iraq, Saleh, says that first, adhering to Article 13 of the amended Financial Management Law, number 6 of 2019. This is how far back this goes, okay? which stipulates spending at a rate of 1/12 of the total actual ongoing of current expenditures in the previous budget, estimated at approximately 115 trillion dinars, or $70 billion. Then it says the second restriction refers to the allocations contained in the emergency law for food security and development, number 2 of 2022, amounting to about 25 trillion dinars, or $17 billion, which means the total expenditures for 2022 amount to a total of 140 trillion dinars, or about 88 billion. But he goes on to explain that the remaining financial surplus from the 2022 revenues is 27 trillion dinars. Like I said earlier, it's $18.5 billion, and it will be an opening balance in the 2023 budget, a sovereign fund. Okay, so these guys have come a full circle and are telling us, which is hard to read because it's so many different pages of all this different stuff, but the bottom line is that they're carrying forward about $18.5 billion to pay some of these expenses, which is left over from that budget. So as we go along, we're going to find that they haven't paid the salaries for the employees, but are they going to? Well, that's the whole idea here, because if they pay salaries for all the employees throughout the country, that's just not Baghdad, but that's also inclusive of the Kurdistan region, because they're uniting. They've got the borders united, they've got the tax and tariffs and all those systems ready to go to be united. It's probably why you see some of this information about some people aren't too happy, while some of that corruption is being isolated. So in other words, you can't steal from the graph that comes from the borders because it's all electronic now. You can't say that you've got 6 employees when you only have 1. You can't draw salaries 5, 6, 7, 8 at a time when you don't have any. So there's probably some contention from the fact that they had to draw those names. If you remember the corruption cases, one of the things that they wanted was they wanted the names. They wanted the banks, who was involved. And so those things have been sorted. It looks like they've come a long way since then, and they're moving forward. So effectively it says details and figures related to employees' salaries and expenses in the Kurdistan. Basically, it's been kind of contentious, but now we're at September 4th. Here it says the former finance committee, so he's a former finance guy, but the bottom line says that the amount to be sent from Baghdad is about 584 billion dinars, which is not enough to pay full salaries from its employees. Therefore, the Ministry of Finance in the regional government is, quote, forced to delay the process of distributing and scheduling salaries in a week or more. Okay, so what day was that? That was the 4th of September. And they say in a week or more. Well, that puts you on or around the 11th and or a few days. That's what they're saying. It's not me, just telling you what they're telling us. And we can go from there. It says, forced to delay the process of distributing and scheduling salaries in a week or more until it completes the rest of the amount from non-oil revenues, such as customs, taxes, and others, since the export of oil is completely off. Well, the oil is completely off in the Kurdistan region, so that's probably contentious in the Kurdistan region. The taxes, tariffs, oil revenues, and customs, and other sources of revenue streams are being automated. You're not going to be able to tap the keg if you've been stealing, so there's probably some contention up there. Basically, the region has multiple expenditures, not just salaries, other obligations, roads, bridges, just like any other community, any other city, humanitarian health, provisions, medical, medicines, all those things, okay? They all have those expenses. They need to be paid. And so I think that some of the hyperbole of the news media and some of the things that they're saying, we may find that, hey, that's part of politics, it's part of media. It's just going to be one of those things that we're just going to have to watch and see how it plays out. But the bottom line is that I think it's going to all come together and be a good thing, right? It says the Secretary of the Council of Ministers in the Kurdistan region, Amanj Rahim, said that the press conference that Baghdad had to send more than 1 trillion dinars per month to the region. Okay, more than $1 trillion per month. You're going to find that Mansour Barzani talked about that today. But that amount of money is 1.375 trillion. They don't say it right here, but that's what we're going to find out in a little bit. That they get down to the nitty gritty. That the 500 million, the 584 billion, I said million, 584 billion dinars isn't enough to cover the salaries, and so they're going over all that, and we're going to see how it turns out in a very, very short period of time. And because of the fact that there is, maybe it's not so much pressure, it's just that the fact remains is I think the Kurdistan region has basically been obliged to move forward. That they've given up their rights, if you will. I'm not sure about rights is the proper word for it, but they have done some things that says to Baghdad, hey, we've done all of our obligations and we're ready to move forward. And one of the articles was really lengthy. I think I wrote about it, maybe misunderstood it a little bit, but I think when you really get down into some of these things, that's what it's about. Take in the good, throw out the bad, but understand that getting different perspectives, taking a little time. Just because an article came out yesterday, it's old news. Well, if you haven't analyzed it well enough and don't really quite get the whole big picture in totality, you're going to miss it. And so I'm pretty sure that we may have not taking it seriously enough, or at least weighted the things that are said by the Kurdistan region and weight the things that are said by the Baghdad region at a time when they're all coming together for what? Unity. And we know that they have a universal treasury account. Okay, that's for the whole country. That's for all the taxes and tariffs at the borders. So we're going to see how that turns out. And I think it's going to turn out really, really good. Here it says the Ministry of Finance announced the signing of an agreement with the Ministry of Finance and the Kurdistan government to pay the salaries and employees. So they've signed an agreement to get that taken care of, and they're basing it on approval of the Council of Ministers, and in the implementation was stated in decision number 23500 in its session held on Sunday the 3rd. That's where we're at. Rafidane and Rashid banks will sign the loan agreement with the Ministry of Finance in the Kurdistan region to pay the salaries for the region's employees by guaranteeing a deposit submitted to the Federal Ministry of Finance, provided that it is settled from the region's dues after their commitment to the provisions of the budget law. So there's a provision is settled after the region's dues from their commitment to the provisions of the budget law. What budget law are they talking about? They're talking about the 23, 24, 25 budget. They're having to wait for that budget law. And we haven't seen them open it nor spend any money on it. And we're going to see some proof of that and evidence of it, which you probably already know, but some people may not. It says the Ministry of Finance is keen to guarantee the official rights of all citizens and employees, keyword, in accordance with what is imposed by the stipulated controls and instructions, and accordingly, the federal government's decision came to disperse financial loans to the Kurdistan regional government as salaries for its employees. I wouldn't be surprised if that verbiage changes in the future. We'll have to watch and see. But moving forward, it says, Ministry of Finance implements its procedures according to what was stated in the Federal General Budget Law number 13 of 2023. Their words, not mine. That's why there's evidence that suggests we're not talking about 2022. This particular part about the employees is talking about 2023, 24, 25 respectively, because that's the budget. We have a tripartite budget. So basically stating it's including the securing of financial rights of those who are entitled to it, and it's indicated that the government is keen to meet these requirements for employees in the Kurdistan region and to implement financial reforms aimed at promoting economic growth, and that's going to go for the whole country. That's all there is to it. So as we see that these things are, it's coming full circle. A sidebar on this one is that while this is all going on the same day, or well, I should say a couple days later, we're talking about the 5th of this month. It says the United States State Department calls on all parties to resolve differences in Kirkuk and a thorough dialogue and activating Article 140 of the Iraqi Constitution, stressing that this time is consistent, having consistent contact with Erbil and Baghdad to resolve disputes related to the budget and salaries is of importance. Okay, they're basically following the tensions in Kirkuk, because there was some tensions there. Sadly, someone died, or maybe some people extra were hurt. You know, my prayers go out for them and their families, of course. It's sad that, you know, tragedy does happen. But here it says that the United States State Department calls on all parties to resolve their differences through dialogue to activate Article 140 of the Constitution. So we're going to start seeing things that they're talking about Constitution, and the Constitution is really going to trump anything that's out there. I mean, it's going to take precedent. So when you see they talk about the constitutionality of certain things, that's maybe where some people, or even myself, may have overlooked some of the intensity that's inside some of the writings that they talk about. But when they start talking about constitutional issues, we probably should pay more attention to that more directly. And I think we can tonight. Okay. In response to a question about the problems between Erbil and Baghdad regarding the budget, salaries, and the non-resumption of exporting Kurdistan's regional oil, this Mr. Vandant Patil said, "We are in constant contact with our partners in Baghdad, in Erbil." So our State Department is basically on the ground and still working with them, and are probably apprised of just about everything that's going on. Obviously, it's in Kirkuk, Dohuk, everywhere in this country. So here we have, speaking of Dohuk, it says there was thousands of people demonstrated in the Dohuk government on Tuesday morning against the federal government's policy of not granting the rights of the people of the Kurdistan region. It represented the monthly salaries of employees and workers in the public sector, and the Kurds' share in their general financial budget. So, okay, so they're basically stating the share in the country as a whole, general financial budget. So they need to be a part of it. It needs to be unified. They're saying, it says that unions and civil society organizations in Dohuk province called on citizens in the province to hold peaceful gatherings to demand the rights of employees and retirees. So again, not only just the employees, but now they're mixing in retirees and the region's budget, which Baghdad hasn't sent to the region for more than 2 months ago. Well, that portion of it for the more than 2 months, it is not the retirees, it's part of the employees, as I see it and read it. It says Monday, the Kurdistan regional government described the federal government in Baghdad as practicing starvation policy against the region, stressing that the amount of $500 billion is sent to Erbil is not sufficient. Remember, they said they needed about over 1 trillion, and I mentioned 1.375. Well, there's going to be some evidence that suggests that that number is definitely in the cards. Okay, and it hasn't arrived yet. Therefore, you have to ask why. Why haven't they? Well, there's got to be a reason for it, and we believe that it comes down to that the 23, 24, 25 budget is going to have an internationally acceptable exchange rate, an exchange rate that's going to be on the Forex. It's going to be international, so that we all, as investors, can freely trade the Iraqi dinar in an international environment. That's the whole purpose of us being here, I think. So, at least it is for me and most people that I know. It says here, the Kurdistan Regional Council of Ministers called on the federal government in Baghdad to disperse the region's financial dues with the amounts indicated in the budget schedules, so that we're talking about the 23, 24, 25 budget, urging the international community to support the Kurdistan region in obtaining its constitutional rights and financial entitlements under the Constitution and signed agreements. You have to ask yourself, well, when did they do that? Well, I'm going to get to that. They did that a while ago. So the media is not always forthcoming properly. There's people that want definitely to move things politically, elections, all these different circumstances. And again, you have corruption. There's certain people that don't want certain things to happen because their gravy train's drying up. But here, this particular article is basically stating that they're talking about the international community. They want help with the international community to support the Kurdistan's region in obtaining its constitutional rights and its financial entitlements. Okay, and they are stating under the Constitution signed agreements, so it's something that's happened in the past. It says, as they go on, the council ministers condemns violence. That's normal behavior. They obviously want to protect against lives and property in the Kirkuk area. And it says basically the cabinet has called on the federal government and the concerned authorities to take immediate legal measures against all those who used arms against demonstrators, caused death to a number of them, and to bring the perpetrators to justice so that they receive their punishment. So at that point in time, we saw in the news that they actually did take advantage, not take advantage, but they actually took off and went in and to help that out and stamp it out a little bit and took charge. They want security and stability in the region, and so under the circumstances, again, when people don't want things to happen, things get out of hand, and unfortunately some people got killed over it. It says the latest developments related to the implementation of the federal budget law for the year 2023 were discussed. Excuse me. And the members of the negotiating delegation of the Kurdistan Regional Government presented the results of their last meeting in Baghdad with the federal government delegation regarding the rights and financial entitlements of the Kurdistan region. So this is something that we've already talked about this, and we're going to go over it, and they're doing it. And here they're openly stating, it says, what is regrettable and worrying is the delay in the payment of the region's salaries for 2 months because Baghdad did not send the salaries with the Kurdistan region, although the region fulfilled all of its obligations towards the federal government within the framework of the budget law and the Constitution. So here they're saying the Kurdistan region basically have done everything they need to do. They did it within the framework of the budget law and the Constitution. So now it's time for push come to shove. So it's kind of a very massive time frame for the unified country take care of everybody, and at the same time, is my view. The Council of Ministers stressed that in exchange for the region's obligations, the total financial dues must be paid, which is according to the budget law. The tables for 2023 amounts to 16,498 billion dinars, which is equivalent, according to the numbers, to 1,375 billion dinars per month. Well, that's going to be according to the Kurdistan region. We're going to find out if that's an equivalency in the future from Baghdad. Okay? Now, granted, they use those terms, and you're going to find that Barzani has even spoken today about that number specifically, and I'll get to it in a short period of time. But here it says, during the session on the 3rd of this month, outside the region's budget and dues schedules, it decided to spend only 500 billion dinars in the form of loans for the months of September, October, November, while after the month of June, there was no amount dispersed for the salaries of the 7th and 8th months, July and August. With the entry into force, here's the kicker, with the entry into force of the federal budget law that was done on 6/25/23. Okay, June 25th, the region fulfilled its obligations under the budget law. So they've done it in the past, and now it's effectively, they've done what they needed to do, and they're openly talking about it. And we can see that it's going to come down to a win, because it's out, it's exposed, and so they've agreed. It even says that Baghdad has agreed to it. So now it's like, well, if they both agreed to it, where are we? We had a holiday yesterday, we're in a holiday today in Baghdad, not in my time zone, but in their time zone, they had holidays, religious holidays, and so they're past us. Tomorrow is a normal, as you will, religious day. It's a Friday, and we're going into the weekend. So we're going to have to watch and see how it goes. It says the Council of Ministers calls on political forces and parties in the region to unify their voice and positions in defense of the rights and powers and entitlements constitutionally guaranteed to the region. So the region is looking for their constitutional rights under which Baghdad should respond. Those are my words. The Council of Ministers also called on the international community to support the Kurdistan region in obtaining its constitutional rights and financial entitlements under the Constitution, and signed agreements, already, and not to allow the rights of the people of Kurdistan to be unjustly violated. Yeah, so since they've been unjustly violated, they need to have that sorted out, and I think they're going to get that sorted out in a very, very short period of time. And interestingly enough, because I'm going to wrap this up, I know it's been a long one. I don't usually do this, but it just happens to be a lot of information over the last couple of days that really needed to be at least addressed. And I hope you all appreciate that a good education, knowing where we stand, knowing what you own is really important, especially towards the end here. You have an understanding of that, hey, it's not just about a few things. It's a conglomeration of a lot of things that have already come together. They've already started to flow. And here's an example of where they were in the past. They didn't have this, and now they have it, and that is the Ministry of Transport announced the activation of the electronic information system. So the transportation system electronically is activating this new system that is in advanced stages that the ministry has reached in providing services, making maximum efforts to implement the paragraphs of the government's program. So the government's program is to make sure that everything is working, ready to go, all around the same time. Ministry of Transport has made important steps in implementing the concept of e-government. Look, e-government has been talked about for probably 5 years. Right now, they're implementing the concept of it. They're basically looking at it in a stand that most countries in the world have this already. Iraq's going to be part of that, which represents an important step in benefiting the technological development witnessed in our current era in order to serve the citizens. To do what? Serve the citizens. That's their whole goal. That's al-Sistani's goal. And frankly, al-Sadr's in the background, who's been awfully quiet about not putting millions of people in the street for not getting paid. He probably has an understanding that things are moving forward and there's not a need for that. Hence, you've seen those peaceful demonstrations in Doha, and it was a good thing to happen. So the last thing is that the Retirement Authority directs the completion of the auditor's transactions as quickly as possible. So obviously they've been working on this. They want it done as quick as possible. The auditors are there. What are they doing? They're looking to make sure that the numbers and the people all jive. They don't need to pay salaries for 6 ghost people. Okay? You might have 1,000 or 20,000 people that have 6 different accounts. I mean, it's insane about a graft. It says here the auditors on the day designated for interviews in cooperation with the Citizens Affairs Department and Department of Services. It says that these auditors should be completing their transactions as quickly as possible. So they basically want to know now, not later, when this is going to be able to disperse to the right people at the right time. So it's fascinating. It's really good stuff. Another thing is that there was a tweet today. Masroor Barzani basically says that they have 0 payments yet. Why is he doing this? He's just making it vocal because, like he said, he's looking out for the international world to help them so that everybody can get this thing done. So it's almost like they're all being unified quickly. Let's get it done. And here we go. He mentions 1.375 not paid in July, August, or September. So you can see that the pressure from him on his tweet, a few notes of mine, supports all the things that I've been talking about. So enjoy it, you guys. This is going to be a fascinating weekend. I think that we have a lot of great things to think about, and I have a lot of great things to look forward to. So hey, enjoy your weekend. And for all of you new folks, you know what, please hit the like button if you like us. If you like to subscribe, please do so. And there's details on how to donate if you want to help keep this content going, because it's very appreciative. All the crew members, Samson the Great, Newshound, does all this work, and it helps you help us. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.